To help me go through that, I have former CIA Larry Johnson. Larry, thank you for joining me again.
Thank you, Stephen. Always a pleasure to be with you.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And appreciate you coming on. And what are your thoughts on Trump's pick with Tom Homan? And will he be able to close down the border and start removing the illegal immigrant criminals?
Well, I think Homan's good, but making him a czar, he doesn't necessarily have any power. It would be better if he was Homeland Security. So frankly, I think that the South Dakota governor that he put in there is pretty weak. She's really, in my view, not a good, solid, strong candidate to accomplish what Trump has said he wanted to accomplish, or at least put Homan in charge of ICE. So he's actually got the legal authority to go do it. He's now got a mission from Trump, but he's really not going to be operating under any necessary legal authority. So that he talks, Homan he's a serious man, and I like him a lot.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm a little bit confused. So is border czar then just a fancy title that the media? Okay. So, but
it's made up.
Did he used to be in charge of ICE?
Yeah, he could, but he hasn't been. They haven't nominated him for that. So you've got Homeland Security, Governor Naomi of South Dakota. So then and Homeland Security is now a really powerful place because it's got both Secret Service, it's got Customs. It's got Immigration and Naturalization, INS. So it's got all of that under it. And, Homan is a czar outside he doesn't have access to the budget. He can't hire and fire. So, you say, yeah, we're going to put you in charge of going around and cleaning this up, but I don't know where his actual authority comes from. And it's not like he has a budget to work with.
Okay, that's interesting. Because a lot of people are excited about him, but without authority and a budget, I guess we'll have to see how it all plays out.
Just like Kamala Harris was border czar. How'd that work out?
Not good.
Yeah.
What Trump is in. People are excited, and then the Republicans in the Senate end up nominating John Thune. John Thune puts McConnell in charge of Senate rules and Tim Scott in charge of the money, but then he brings in some Mike Pence people. We've got Murkowski and Collins, both very anti-Trump. Is Trump going to be blocked by these 4 or 5 people over in the Senate?
Probably. Yeah. I mean, it's just, anybody that gives money to the Republican Party anymore is a fool. There needs to be something set up separate from them. This is, these guys, these people are corrupt. McConnell's corrupt. Murkowski's corrupt. But they've been playing the game. They've gotten rich off of Washington, D.C. I think Trump, it sounds like Trump did talk to Thune, may have cut a deal with Thune. And I think that the Trump wing of the Republican Party now, it's really the Trump party, will absolutely go out and primary some of these people if they throw up obstacles. I don't think Mitt Romney's going to run again. He's already admitted that, he'll be toast. But when you've got Susan Collins, Murkowski, Thune, McConnell, Romney, right there, if they vote with the Democrats, they can block Trump on everything.
Yeah.
And they may very well.
Yeah. Well, Mitt Romney he'll be replaced in January with a new guy, John Curtis, here in Utah. And that guy is already setting up to be in the McConnell camp. So now my question is, why doesn't Mitch McConnell retire? Is he in there to get richer or to make sure that nobody finds out how he got rich? Because that's how I feel about Nancy Pelosi. She can't just be running because she wants to be a public servant at age 85 or 86, she's got to be covering her tracks.
Well, you remember that song in the 1986, Robert Palmer, "Addicted to Love." You gotta have to admit it. You're addicted to love. These guys are addicted to power. They're addicted to being able to control Americans, not have to live by what they pass, but by God, they like the power. That's what's going on, and they are addicts. And just like any addict, whether they're addicted to alcohol or addicted to methamphetamine or addicted to power, it's difficult to walk away from it.
Yeah, I read today. Let me see if I can pull this up. It was about Nancy Pelosi. They just released her new net worth, and it's like, oh, here it is. Nancy Pelosi's portfolio reaches all-time high with an estimated net worth of $264 million.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Like, how do you get worth $250 million as a public servant? Unbelievable.
Hey, America, what a country. Yeah. Well, this, it is the parallels between a house of prostitution and the Congress are they're pretty strong, except the only difference is in Congress you're going to get screwed but not satisfied, and they're busy screwing the American taxpayer, and it's outright theft. And there's no accountability. That's the thing that's so infuriating about not everyone, but a good number. And it's a club, and they protect themselves, and that's what Trump is up against. He's dealt with. Go back to this first term. Remember, Lindsey Graham kept vowing when he was head of the Judiciary Committee, by God, he was going to get to the bottom of Russiagate and all that. He didn't do anything. Talked a good game, did nothing.
Yeah, he did ask tough questions, but then never did anything with the answers. Yeah. What are your thoughts on Biden trying to get another $24 billion of taxpayer money to give to Zelensky in Ukraine? Do you think that's going to happen?
Yeah, probably. Because the majority of that money is not going to actually go to Ukraine. It's going to go to U.S. defense contractors who are going to turn around and give that money back to members of Congress who are getting ready to run for their next term. It's a washing machine. The money flows here, goes there, comes back. I mean, it's just back and forth. The money goes back and forth. You got to understand that the defense lobbyists, and I know this inside and out. My next door neighbor, great guy, but he was one of the largest defense lobbyists in town back in Bethesda, Maryland, Washington, D.C. And most of his time was spent, he'd sign up these industrial corporations. Then they would say, here's the projects we want to get done. Then he would put together fundraisers where those corporations would come and give money to these members of Congress. Then he would take their legislation to those members of Congress, and those members of Congress would put it into law, get it enacted. And then, they'd send the money back to the military-industrial complex. Then the military-industrial complex keeps coming back and giving them more money because they're more fundraisers, and they find, they get their employees to contribute. They get their political action committees to contribute. I mean, it's complete corruption. That's what's driving the thing. Not is it the best product, not is it the right thing to do. It's just, as long as I get paid, give me my check and we'll get you what you need. That's what Washington has become.
Is this maybe why the Pentagon has failed its seventh audit in a row? Is they can't have a paper trail of where that money is going, or else it would make the American people furious? Yeah.
I mean, if they saw the truth, they would. It would expose the crime. Is the right way to put it. Because look at the F-35. Right now, the estimated cost on that, when you figure in operational costs, maintenance, etc., it's $200 million in a plane. And of the fleet of F-35s, the last GAO report was that only 29% were in combat condition, that they could fly and actually carry out a mission. $200 million? 5 of those then is $1 billion? Then multiply that by 10. It's all $10 billion, you get 50. $100 billion, you get 500. That's more than 12% of the total defense budget.
Yeah.
And
they're total crap. I mean, even Elon Musk yesterday was writing saying, why do we continue to give $200 million for a jet that doesn't work? Think how many drones we could buy for $200 million. Drones are the future of warfare.
Yeah, which is true.
I mean, look at the Houthis in the Red Sea. They've been holding off an incredible, I don't know, Navy or Air Force.
Both. Well,
with drones.
But you understand why this continues, because there's this thing called officers, Air Force officers, and they have to be able to command something in order to keep their job as Air Force officers. And so therefore, you don't want to get rid of combat aircraft, even though they no longer make sense technologically. That's why that in December of 1941, you still had horse cavalry with cavalry officers in the U.S. Army in 1941.
Wow.
Because the jobs program. I call it jobs program for white guys.
Okay. That's a long time to keep a program on. You probably know this. Help my audience understand. Putin gets, Russia is attacked because of Joe Biden's permission to fire U.S. weapons deeper into Russia. Correct. He then does this demonstration with the Oresnik missile.
Yeah, Oresnik.
What is the Oresnik missile, and why is it so dangerous?
Let's go back to 1987, when Europe had been pressing the United States. Oh my God, you got to give us the Pershing II missile, because the Soviets have an intermediate range nuclear missile that can hit us, and we don't have anything to fire back. And so that led to the deployment of the Pershing II. But during the course of that, the United States and the Soviet Union started talking and came to an agreement that they would eliminate an entire class of weapons. And that was called the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Agreement, the INF, signed with Ronald Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev in 1987. Jump ahead to 2018. Donald Trump, following the guidance of Mike Pompeo and John Bolton, walks away from the INF Treaty. And in walking away from the INF Treaty, we now said, basically, it's okay to build an intermediate range nuclear missile. What is an intermediate range nuclear missile? It's a missile that will travel between 300 miles and 5,500 miles. That's an intermediate range. Anything above 5,500 is an intercontinental ballistic missile. So Russia said, okay, no more treaty. They started building. And what they've built is a remarkable piece of technology that the United States does not have and cannot match, at least now. And what this is it is an intermediate range ballistic missile. It could hit every single country in Europe, from Italy to the United Kingdom to Norway to Sweden. It carries a MIRVed warhead. MIRV means multiple independently reentry vehicle, independently targeted. So it's got, think of it like a cluster of pine cones in the nose cone, and they split off, and each one can be its own missile. But it's also MARVed, M-A-R-V. That stands for Maneuverable Reentry Vehicle. So not only does it have multiple vehicles, but you can steer it. It can be driven. And either, depending on your point of view, best of all or worst of all, it's hypersonic. hypersonic, I think the minimum threshold's like 4 Mach, going faster than 4 Mach, 5 Mach. This goes in excess of 10 Mach. So what they did last Thursday, in response, because they had warned the United States, if you fire these ATACMS or storm shadows or scalps into our country, we're going to retaliate. And they let the United States know, we're going to hit, this is what we're going to hit. And they fired this Oresnik missile, hypersonic missile, that hit with, it didn't carry any explosive warhead. It carried only the kinetic force of these separate missiles. Each one, I think, carried like 26 separate missiles. They completely destroyed, I am told, this monstrous defense plant called Uzmash. It was 1 mile by 1 mile square. So it's 1 mile long, 1 mile wide, big place. Completely destroyed it without explosives. The United States and Europe do not have any air defense system that can shoot this down. And Putin announced it. If you continue doing this, we're going to hit your military base. We'll give you, he said, we're going to give you advance warning so you can get your people out of there. We don't want to kill civilians, but we're going to destroy that base if you continue doing this. Well, we continue doing it. We allowed the Ukrainians to fire cruise missiles the last 2 days. Last night, the Russians announced, the Ministry of Defense announced there will be retaliation. They issued a NOTAM, a notice to all airmen that the space over that location where the Russians have fired the previous Oresnik from is now closed off to civil commercial aviation. And I don't know if it's today or tomorrow, but sometime before the 30th, the Russians are going to fire another Oresnik or two, and they're going to hit one or more targets, I presume in Ukraine, but they potentially could go outside of Ukraine to the new U.S. military base that's been opened in Poland. And they're going to destroy it. But they don't have to use a nuke. That's what makes this thing remarkable. It's a strategic weapon without producing radiation, without producing the kind of fireball that one associated with, say, the blast in Hiroshima from an atomic bomb. It's a game changer. Yeah. And the United States has no answer to it.
Okay, let me ask a couple of questions, because I understand one big thing goes, it opens, and then there's lots of these little vehicles. So are you saying this first one that they fired, we know there was no nuclear warhead, but there were no warheads? It was literally just the kinetic energy of the equipment itself?
Well, they were the warheads without explosives.
Okay.
And
so still the weight of that metal, boom.
Yeah, if you look at the video looks like the 6 sort of blasts of light coming down. Well, when you slow that down, you realize that in each one of those blasts of light, there are like 6 to 8 separate missiles.
Okay.
And they were spread out. Oh, they hit here, hit there, hit here, hit there, hit there. And it penetrates into the ground. It's sort of like, if you go back in history, before recorded history, when the asteroid hit the Earth and wiped out the dinosaurs, where it collided, that collision, it wasn't an explosion. It was simply the impact of something traveling at Mach speed coming up against a solid object, and the joules, the energy generated by that are enormous. And that's what actually, that energy from that is what destroyed that base. Wow. So it gives the Russians a way that they can actually use something that has the potential destructive power of a nuke. They could have used those, if they would have attached some conventional explosives to it, it would have been even more devastating. And yet they can target it so it's going to limit damage to civilians, minimize collateral damage to civilians, no radiation, no hurricane force winds that are going to be knocking buildings down within a mile radius. So it's a game changer.
Okay. Now, so I spoke with Colonel McGregor, and he said it's the alternative to a nuclear weapon.
Yes.
And I didn't fully understand what he meant by that. So thank you for helping me clarify that. Is that something that they have a lot of, or
they're mass producing it? That's what Putin said the other day.
Oh,
you know, I wrote a piece because he made a point. He says, if you keep this up, we're going to strike back. We're going to let you know in advance. And I called it his Billy Jack movement. Now you're too young. You didn't remember Billy Jack when it came out in 1973 because you weren't even born yet.
No.
but in this movie Billy Jack, he was half Indian, half gringo, and a former Green Beret, and he's it's sort of the ultimate David versus Goliath, and these corrupt people in this town in South Dakota are persecuting and the Indians. And they confront Billy Jack, and he's standing with the chief bad guy. And he says, you know what? I'm going to take this right foot here, and I'm going to whop you on that side of your face. And there's not a damn thing you can do about it. And the bad guy goes, really? And Billy Jack says, yeah, really. And then whomp, kicks him upside the face, knocks him down. That's what Putin did last week. He says, if you keep doing this, we're going to retaliate, and we'll retaliate with this missile, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. We can hit you wherever we want to, however we want to, and there's not a thing you can do to stop it. And the West is, we don't believe it. Okay, we're going to find out. It was sometime within the next 48 hours, Russia is going to strike, and they're going to do it in a way that it's going to cause an oh my God reaction.
Yeah. Okay. Just based on whatever they pick to target.
I'm betting something like the Rheinmetall. So this German defense industry has set a factory up in Western Ukraine to produce weapons for the Ukrainians. I could see them wiping that out. They also could go for the base, the Yavoriv military base, which is a de facto NATO base. They've hit it before, but they literally now could wipe out that base, render it uninhabitable by virtue of just destroying all the infrastructure. So we'll see.
Okay. Two questions, because I sometimes forget the questions I want to ask people. Why did they call them and give them a heads up? Was it specifically to let them know not a nuclear weapon coming in?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then the second question, and I'll let you elaborate on that, but the second question is, Russia is pretty calculated. I have to imagine that even though they could hit Poland or some other place, for now, they don't want to escalate. It would probably remain within Ukraine.
Likely to remain within Ukraine, but Putin's coming under growing pressure from hardliners inside his government, who say, if this was reversed, if we were arming the Mexican drug cartels and we were launching missiles into San Antonio, Texas, into Austin, Texas, into Albuquerque, into Phoenix, into Tucson, into San Diego, do you think that the United States would hold back and not retaliate against us? They absolutely would. They'd view that as an unacceptable existential threat. They would absolutely retaliate. So we need to be able to do the same, because until we punch them in the nose, they're not going to understand. So that's, but they're not going to be swinging wildly like a drunk in a bar. They're going to be very precise in their punches. They're going to hit the people and places that are responsible for these missiles. So that's why I could see them taking out this. The U.S. just opened a brand new base in Poland 3 weeks ago now. I could see them possibly attacking that. But I think for right now, they're going to go with a gradual escalation, but it's going to be devastating. They destroyed one plant. They will destroy one or two more things, just to make sure that the West understands we're not kidding. We warned you, and it will not be just a pinprick. It won't be just a pile of rocks. It's going to be something significant. And in fact, the the deputy ambassador to the UN for Russia, Ambassador Polyansky, who I've met, gentleman. He addressed the UN Security Council today, and basically he said, "We warned you, so now you're going to find out." That's what he said. "We warned you, now you're going to find out."
Okay. Yikes. Well, I'll be covering that news story here soon. Thank you for your insight on that. One story that I'm trying to verify, Colonel McGregor didn't seem to know whether it was true or have information, but I found a couple of British newspapers that are saying that Russia was hit with Storm Shadow missiles that killed over 500 North Korean soldiers. but McGregor said that they're not, the North Koreans aren't on the front line. What do you know? Anything about this?
Okay, yeah, Stephen. So let's put this in here's what's going on. The deep state recognized by early September that Donald Trump was going to win. And so they have been busy trying to create a whole number of narratives that would justify an expansion of the war to create chaos for Donald Trump. That's why on October 8th, David Sanger, a writer at the New York Times, put out the story that there were all these North Korean troops in fighting in Kursk with the Russians. Why? Because the Russians had suffered catastrophic losses and they needed the manpower. That's a lie. A complete, made-up piece of, as Ray McGovern calls it, male bovine excrement. Okay? The MBE. That's the MBE.
Okay.
Not true. But they continued to push this North Korean story so that the other day, Biden justified, oh, well, yeah, we had to let the Ukrainians fire those attack missiles because of the North Koreans. Now the North Koreans have disappeared. It's the Houthis. I guarantee you, there's not a Houthi out of their mind that wants to go to Russia and freeze to death, okay? The Houthis like the warm climate in Yemen. But this entire element about the North Koreans, it's made up. As in the same way that the Iranian plot to kill Donald Trump, that's made up. But these are all part of a deep state effort to create a narrative where we've got these external enemies we need to fight in order to create wars that will get Donald Trump bogged down in war instead of following through on his promises to clean the stables of the deep state.
Okay. Yeah, I was reading it going, well, this could be dangerous if, North Korea is having casualties, Kim Jong-un may react. But then as I tried to do more research, I'm like, I just couldn't find any other sources on this story. And then I go, you know what? I'm going to ask Larry if this is propaganda.
Yeah, it's absolutely propaganda, 100%.
Wow.
And here, I got the exact quote that from Ambassador Polyansky. This is what he said today in the UN Security Council with respect to allowing those attack missiles to be used in Russia. "We've warned you about this, but you have made your choice."
Okay.
They're not screwing around.
So you have no doubt that they are escalating before
Yes.
Trump gets in order to
Yes.
make Trump. Okay.
They're escalating just to send the message to the West. You don't get to attack us. In the same way that if we attack them, we wouldn't let them get away with it. But see, this is the problem. We like to think we're so special and so unique that we can be the accessory to murder. We can give the weapon to the person who then uses that to kill a civilian, and that we're somehow not responsible. That's what we've been doing with the Israelis as well. We're as guilty for every dead Palestinian as the Israelis are. We're facilitating murder on a global scale.
That's heavy stuff. Final question. Do you know anything about why the Russian military of defense announced that they're closing off airspace over military installations in Russia that have nuclear missiles?
Yeah, well, that what they announced, it was last night. It's called a NOTAM, NOTAM. It means Notice to Airmen. They're closing it down because they're going to be launching another one of these Oresniks, one or two, maybe more.
Okay. And when they called the United States to let them know, we're firing this weapon that you can't stop, but it doesn't have nuclear weapons, did they tell them where they were going to hit, or just that it was going to happen?
No, I think they probably told them where they're going to hit. Okay. I mean, that's what's remarkable. Remember, you know something about baseball. Babe Ruth calling a shot to center field, right there. That's what they did. The Russians called their shot. Yeah, this is where we're going. Dnipropetrovsk, or Dnipropetrovsk. So Dnipropetrovsk was the site, the Uzmash factory. And the West said, oh, yeah, really? Okay. And they're watching, and then boom, 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 boom. They couldn't stop it.
I was watching how fast and how hard it was hitting, but then I wasn't seeing big explosions, and I didn't understand it until you explained it to me in the audience. But
yeah,
I never thought to slow it down. And you're saying within each of those fast-moving bolts, almost like lightning.
Yeah.
Within there's eight to 10
missiles separate.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll have to go back and rewatch that.
Yeah, it created just such a plasma. They're going so fast, and the friction with the atmosphere is so great. But the other thing that shocked the Western intelligence analysts was those things were maneuverable, so you could steer them. That shows a level of precision with this targeting that is just it's something new. It's it's like,
oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying it's akin to, on August 5th, nobody knew about the atomic bomb, August 5th of 1945. After, 2:00 in the afternoon on August 6th, everybody knew about it. Something had changed in that 24 hours. That's sort of what happened last Thursday. There was that kind of dramatic, this is a shift in military technology that will affect the future of warfare. Because think about this. If I have a weapon, I can hit you anytime I want, and there's not a thing you can do to stop it.
Yeah.
I can take out all of your nuclear weapons. I can hit them and penetrate the ground. I don't have to use a nuke to do it. So I put you in the position of where you're going to try to start a nuclear war. I'm not. I can kill you with the conventional stuff. But then if you want to go nuclear, okay, we can do that too, and that'll be the end of the world. I mean, that's what we're playing with here. And it's, I don't want to use the word play to imply that it's something frivolous, but it's extremely dangerous.
Okay, one more question. So Biden and his cronies are trying to disrupt the playing field for Donald Trump. Putin has to remain and look strong to his people and defend Russia. Trump is kind of in the middle. Does Putin have the patience to wait for Trump to get in? That's my worry.
No, I don't think so, for this reason. So in the last 2 days, you've had comments both by Michael Waltz, who's the designated national security advisor for Trump. He said, I've been meeting with Jake Sullivan, and we're hand in glove with Jake Sullivan. Now, if you're the Russians, you're sitting back going, okay, so Trump's going to do the same thing that Jake Sullivan and Joe Biden have been doing. Okay. Then you get Sebastian Gorka shooting his mouth off. And he's going, yeah, Putin's a murderous thug. And we're going to tell him exactly what it's going to. He's going to accept what we tell him, or else it's going to look like peanuts in terms of what the Biden administration provided. And I'm going, Biden administration has provided $200 billion in weapons and aid. Doesn't sound like peanuts to me. So what, you're going to provide $1 trillion? So the Russians are listening to that. And then there was the vice admiral from Strategic Forces Command last week said, yeah, the United States is prepared to fight and win a nuclear war against Russia. And then the Russians see that the United States has put its nuclear forces on highest alert ever. So the Russians now believe that the United States intends to launch a preemptive nuclear strike on them. They're prepared for that. That's how dangerous this is. And Trump, instead of coming out and telling Gorka, you shut up, you're not speaking for me, and telling Waltz, you be quiet too, let me explain to you what we're about. I'm about peace. I'm about finding a way that we can work peacefully with Russia and with China. That's not happening. So from the Russian standpoint, it doesn't matter what Trump said on the campaign trail. They're looking at actions. And the actions suggest that there's not going to be any change between what Joe Biden was doing and what Donald Trump's going to do.
This is where Tulsi Gabbard made a good point, where she said there's so many variables outside of your control that could kick off World War III. Like, it could be the shot heard around the world, which wasn't approved, but the shot still happened. And, like, these guys running their mouths, and, the Russians are thinking, okay, this is Donald Trump's messenger, when in fact it may not be. Trump needs to speak up. He's got to start coming out and publicly stating, because otherwise he's not on the phone with Putin every day. So they're trying to guess what America's doing and what future America's doing. And that's shaky ground.
Well, Stephen, this is what makes it so dangerous right now. And Ray McGovern made this point earlier today. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, there were still methods of communication between John F. Kennedy and Nikita Khrushchev. The foreign ministers were talking. They were able to talk as well, of military to military. There were senior level contacts. We don't have that now. The United States is not talking to the Russians. And so we don't have an open channel of communication to try to defuse, de-escalate. Instead, the Russians have to sit back and watch what is said and what is done. And what they're watching being done is the United States is authorizing the firing of missiles into Russian territory. And the Russians are saying, hell no, that's going to stop. In the same way that we would react if Russia supplied missiles to Mexicans or Canadians and they were firing it, or the Cubans, and they were firing them into the United States. We would view that as a cause to go to war. And yet, in our arrogance, we believe that we can do this to the Russians and they have to suck it up and take it. Well, they just sent a message. You've made your choice. You've been warned.
Wow. Scary times.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, I don't think most Americans realize how foolish the Biden team is playing right now. This is very dangerous.
Yeah.
Larry, if people want to continue to get your insight, where can I point them? I know you are a prolific writer.
Yep, it's sonar21.com, SONAR21.com.
Okay, sonar21.com. Let me put that down below, because I don't get to have you on as regularly as some might like, but they can continue to follow you there. Scary stuff. Thank you for researching this, staying abreast of everything, so that we can better understand what's really going on in our government and in foreign policy. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving weekend. And I appreciate you coming on. I'll put that direct link down below. But thank you. Have a great rest of your night.
Great. And best to you and your family.
Thank you.